Well, good morning, guys. Walking Boxing, Thursday, August 15th, 2024. And as always, I get up in the morning as I'm walking and scour the boxing sites just to see if there's anything of note that's happened overnight, as well as the social media pages. And I was pleasantly surprised this morning to see that there are reports that Tim Tszyu will be fighting Bakhram Murtazaliev on October 18th in Florida, of all places. I must admit the date didn't surprise, but the location certainly did, Florida. So yeah, I'm not quite sure. That obviously hasn't been officially announced by No Limit yet, but there are reports that is the case. So look, that's great news, obviously, for Tim. His name's been in the news this week, of course, because of Turki Al-Sheikh, who's got the shits with him at the moment. Look, I'm sure all that will change, by the way. Same as probably Canelo. Look, this is a business, remember. They all have their little disagreements and miscommunications and all that sort of stuff. But I think at some stage, what do they say? If it makes dollars, it makes sense. So I've got no doubt if Tim gets his belt, especially if Terence Crawford's still with Turki Al-Sheikh, which I'm assuming he will be for the remainder of his career, that Tim Tszyu at some stage will factor into proceedings there, which is a good thing. You know, I know we've discussed it a little bit this week, and I'm talking boxing and everything else about Turki Al-Sheikh and whether is he good and bad. Look, the overwhelming thing is so far he's been overwhelmingly good. I suppose the argument has been is what happens if he does get complete control. So it's certainly not saying that he's doing anything bad at the moment. That seems to be a little bit of the talk about miscommunication that some people have sort of brought up. But my thing is, I'm not, and a few other people I know aren't necessarily bagging him as it stands, because he hasn't really done anything wrong. It's just the question of the body language and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, that's for another. Or not his body language, his demeanour and his comments, all that sort of stuff. But anyway, that's something we've covered extensively already. So yeah, so Tim Tszyu, there's report was that there was a 3-fight deal. So it's obviously going to be, well, I say it's obvious. It's probably not obvious, because there's supposed to be a 3-fight deal, with the next fight maybe being as early as December against Erickson Lubin, which would probably point towards maybe PBC. But then the end game after that was to fight Terence Crawford. So who knows what's going on? Again, there wasn't actually reported who the promoter was. So as I said, I assumed it was PBC, but maybe it's someone else. Anyway, we will see. But that is what's happening. And surprisingly, nothing from No Limit at the moment. But having said that, now that I've got on here and started talking about it, it'll probably be on the socials later today. Maybe someone's broke the embargo and gone early with the news or something, I don't know, but we'll have a look out for that. But look, obviously it's great news. There were maybe reports that maybe Murtazaliev will be pulled because of the Turki Al-Sheikh situation. I don't know anything about that, so I think we're all guessing. But he might be pulled in favour of maybe fighting someone else and then maybe fighting Crawford at some stage. I highly doubt, I highly doubt that Crawford would want to fight Murtazaliev with only a couple of fights left in his career, but he fought Madrimov, didn't he? It was probably just as lesser known as what Murtazaliev is. So yeah, who knows? But doesn't really matter. It's all good news for Tim Tszyu. I highly doubt, of course, the Erickson Lubin fight's going to happen in December. He's got like an 8-week window, and I know Tim loves the fight and he would love to back up as soon as possible, but I think even for Tim, an 8-week turnaround or whatever it might be a little bit hard, even with, even if he did blow out Murtazaliev. You've still got to do it with, the training camps are pretty tough, and Murtazaliev, I think, is not the type of guy I would think that's going to get blown out early by anyone. So as I said, yeah, great news. And if the Lubin fights are after that, then what happens to Crawford after that, we will see. So good news to wake up this morning. And it sort of got me thinking, seems like every week we're getting big news about Australian fighters. And I think back to a long time ago when we might, well, not that long ago, we might have had one champion, maybe two champions, world champions that is. These days it's hard to keep up with how many world champions we've got and the opportunities they've got coming up. I think I said that at one stage earlier in the year we had, I think it was 11 or 12 fighters lined up for world title fights this year. Just amazing. So I won't rattle through the whole lot. I've done that before, but we've had 11 or 12 world title or different fighters in world title fights this year. And as I said, it sort of gets me back to, I remember even when Lester Ellis won the IBF 130-pound title in 1985, the first time in a long time he'd had a world champion. And then a couple of months later, along comes Jeff Fenech. And they were the top two for probably, or a little while. Lester, of course, lost his belt to Barry Michael. Barry went on and had a couple, or 3 or 4 world title fights after that as well. And then it was just the Jeff Fenech era after that. He single-handedly carried Australian boxing on his shoulders and just into massive fights. And one thing I'll say about Jeff, a lot of people's legacies get questioned sometimes. One thing you can't do with Jeff is that, as an absolute boxing nut back then, as far as just having my nose in all the boxing magazines. We didn't have the internet back then, by the way. So it was, I'd have to buy my 6 or 7 magazines per month and keep up with all the news with that. But he fought absolutely everybody, every top-ranked challenger, undefeated at bantamweight, undefeated at super bantamweight, undefeated at featherweight, and really should have been an undefeated 4-time world champion, apart from the draw with Nelson. So I'm sort of getting off track there. I can't help but talk about Jeff when the opportunity comes up, because I was just such a massive fan. If he's back in the 80s and 90s, he was my idol, like a lot of you guys and girls out there, I'm sure. But then we had a little bit of a lull after Jeff. We had a few people fight for world titles, didn't really, couldn't bring it home. Fighters like Troy Waters, of course, Guy Waters fought for the title as well, and some others. And then we went into the Costa Tszyu era, and even though he wasn't an Australian, the Aussies got right behind him, and he was he was like our own. He was a national, an Australian idol, Australian. Whatever you want to call it, champion. He was our Costa. Then we had a little, well, I won't say it was a little bit of a lull, but then we had of course, the Anthony Mundine and Danny Green era. A little bit different with those two though, because they never really took on the international scene though. They predominantly fought in Australia. So it's a little bit different. They were massive here in Australia, but didn't really make a lot of waves outside of Australia. It wasn't until 2017 when a bloke by the name of Jeff Horn comes around, some great management from his team, and whatever you might want to call it, negotiating or whatever the hell they did, but they managed to get Manny Pacquiao out here to Australia. I know Dean Lonigan and David Higgins from Duco did great things with the Queensland government, got that fight here, and I think that for me is the real the epicenter of where we are now, because what you got to remember, it's got another dog coming here. What you got to remember is that what a magnitude that was. How you doing? Oh, we'll just get Neil past there. That was for me the point where where Australian boxing really went into the stratosphere. We weren't small time anymore. Yes, there were a lot of people dirty with Jeff, particularly the Filipinos, who weren't happy with him beating Manny Pacquiao. But since that fight, now I know he didn't have the title very long. He had that one defence over Corcoran, and then, no disgrace, of course, got the fight with Terence Crawford, and of course came up short. But what a fight that did again for his sort of legacy, I suppose, to fight Pacquiao and Crawford within a year of each other. Just amazing. But since then, what's happened? Again, I'm not going to rattle off all the names, but at the moment, Jaya Pattaya. Actually, I'll go back a step, because what I think it did was just really put the spotlight on Australian boxing, that we had the fighters, we had the support here, we had the funding, there was 50,000 people there at Suncorp Stadium. And all of a sudden we had promoters starting to sniff around Aussie fighters. And of course the streaming services came in, and all of a sudden we had all these Australian fighters that were not necessarily even staying here in Australia. Of course, we also had the No Limit thing as well, where they came in and pretty much took Australia by storm in a very short time and ended up with the TV rights, all that sort of stuff. But it really opened the door, I think, that fight to all of a sudden we had Top Rank and Eddie Hearn and these guys were sort of looking at our fighters, and now we're at the point where we've got Jaya Pattaya, the IBF world champion, signed with Matchroom. We've got Liam Paro, IBF 140-pound champion, also with Matchroom, in conjunction with their own promoters here, of course, Tasman Fighters and Ace Boxing. Even the girls, Sky Nicholson, WBC champion with Eddie Hearn, Shanika Johnson with Luda Bella, Ebony Bridges with Matchroom as well. We've had the Maloney boys with Top Rank. Sam Goodman, who's obviously with No Limit. I'm sure that if he gets a shot at Naya Winaway and happens to win that fight, you'd be guaranteed that there'll be an Eddie Hearn or someone sniffing around him as well. So I suppose the point I'm getting at is that fight, the Horn-Pacquiao fight, really, again, I'll say it, really just opened the door for, I think, for where we are now. And it's unbelievable in the space of 7 years to have 11 or 12 fighters, whatever it is this year, fight for world titles. Many others on the cusp fighting for world titles. Who knows, Sam Goodman gets that fight, the Maloneys get back into it. We've had Liam Wilson fight for the belts as well. It really is just an amazing time for Australian boxing in such a small country, 26 million people. Boxing, it's a very small community here, very loyal and dedicated and everything else, but it's a very small one. And it just got me thinking this morning when I saw the Tszyu thing, thinking, geez, I've got to add this to everything else going on out there. And it's hard to keep up. We've got George Kambosos back amongst or looking like he's going to be back in the swing of things soon. We've got the Olympians probably going to turn pro. Terramona, I would say, will turn pro. I'd say Charlie Senior will turn pro. Callum Peters will turn pro. Who knows if Harry Garside goes back to the pros, and that's not even counting the girls. Who knows what they'll do, but even the girls as well. So many young girls. I look at Jasmine Parr and Taylor Robinson at the moment. Who knows if Shannon O'Connell can get back amongst it? You just don't know. But again, it just underlies what I'm trying to say, is that Australian boxing at the moment is absolutely booming, and I sort of trace it back to, as far as that real big time stuff goes, to 2017, with the exception before that being, a couple of those fighters. But I just think back when I was a 10-year-old kid and it was all about Lester Ellis and Jeff Fennick. There wasn't much news or attention given really to any other fighters, to be honest. Of course, again, we didn't have the internet or anything like that. So we were sort of in the dark a lot, and the opportunities just didn't come because we just weren't on the map. But now, I get a lot of people on our shows, or the Talking Boxing, even this Walking Boxing, whatever we might do, the live watch-alongs, and so many people from overseas with a great respect for Aussie boxers and Aussie boxing in general. So look, it's probably just a bit of a puff out the chest piece this morning, just about with Australian boxing and where it is at the moment. So that is about it for today. But that's another beautiful day here, by the way, Mount Macedon. So we'll get on with the day. You guys have a good one, and we'll catch you tomorrow.